Alrighty. Hey guys, how are you? I am checking my tech. I'm a couple of minutes late because I'm trying to get the tech figured out. But do me a favor and tell me if you can hear me and if you can see me. Oh, I'm still not seeing a live video. Let's try this. There we go. All right. So I think we're okay. I think we're recording. Hi, everybody. Come on in. It took me a minute to figure out the tech. So just a few months ago, Facebook cut off third-party streaming into its groups and things, and there are ways around it that we've kind of figured out, but it's very, very techy. And I'm mostly techie, but I'm not all techie. There's a difference between mostly techie and all techie. So we're gonna really, really pray that the tech works for us tonight. Please let me know in the comments if you can see me and hear me. Let me look here. We can hear you and see you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Linda and Elaine. And hi, Angela. Hi. I don't know how you say your name. Jit? I really like it. I just don't know how to say it. So I'm so sorry if I said it wrong. All right. So let's go ahead and get started since it seems to be working. I have all kinds of things set up. So if I'm looking from side to side, it's because I'm looking at my notes or I'm checking your comments. I cannot see them on the camera that I'm looking at. So I have like my phone over here and my iPad over here so that I can see everything. All right. So let's see. We've got some more people coming in, but we are going to go ahead and get started because we got a lot to cover tonight. Tonight's training may be slightly longer than the next 2 days, so I don't want to wait too long to get started. But the other thing is that we're going to do a little bit of housekeeping to kind of tell you how things are going to work for the next couple of days. So let's dive in. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the workshop. I'm so glad you're here. I love talking about this stuff. I really appreciate you guys giving me some of your time. So in terms of the schedule, we're going to meet today, tomorrow, Wednesday at the same time, 6 p.m. And then we're going to take Thursday off. That's because I have something else going on that night. And also to give myself a little bit of a break, a little recharge of the battery. And then we're going to meet again on Friday. I might even do a couple of bonus Q&As, but I haven't decided which days they're going to be yet. So I will let you know. I will send everything via email and I will let you know on the lives as we go along. Next thing to know, I'm going to give you a little bit of homework at the end of every night. And the next day, so days 2, 3, and 4, there are going to be prizes that I will announce when we go live. And how do you get those prizes? You have to participate and comment in the Facebook group. So I'm going to give you homework that you will post in the Facebook group. You got to post your homework. And beyond that, whoever engages the most with other people, the most comments on other people's stuff, kind of getting to know each other and that sort of thing. And I'm just going to go through and count. And if there is a tie, say 2 people are tying for first place and in their engagement, then I will do a kind of random drawing of those people who are tied. They're going to be really good prizes. I'm not going to tell you what they are yet, but they're going to be really fun. So make sure that you are putting your homework in the Facebook group and engaging with the other members so that you are in the running for those prizes. Okay. I'm going to check your comments really fast. Hi, Sherry. Okay, so we just got a few. The other thing is that I'm constantly being asked if there is going to be replays, and the answer is yes, there will be replays. So I'm going to send them out. I will send it out sometime tonight. I don't know if it'll be right away. It depends on how long it takes to upload it and get it to render and all of that. But there will be replays so that if you don't make it live one of the nights, you can get caught up, okay? All right, I think that is all of the housekeeping that I have. So let's jump in. Like I said, we got a lot to go over in this training. And so I'm just going to dive in. I'm going to go ahead and let's see, make this full screen. There we go. So you can see it. Okay, so today we are going to talk about 5 mistakes you are probably making that make character creation unnecessarily hard. And these actually go for any aspect of your story, but especially character creation, okay? So first, let's just go over what they are, and then we're going to kind of deep dive into each one. The 5 mistakes are not intentionally tapping into your subconscious creativity, not recognizing why people buy books, the actual like underlying reason, not using the journey to create emotion, not using the inner arc to create catharsis, and not using surface emotions, what I call SRTs, I'll explain what those are later, to market, which I like to call emotional marketing. So if you don't know what any of those are, don't worry, we're going to go through them. So the first mistake is not tapping into your subconscious creativity. So what does this mean? Well, for our purposes, you basically have two minds. You actually have three, but again, we're just going to talk about two. There's the conscious and the subconscious. The conscious mind takes care of day-to-day activities, what you're doing, where you're going, when you're making dinner, when you've got your to-do list, when you're just going about your day, everything you have to do, that's the conscious mind. The subconscious mind houses your emotions and your creativity. I want you to remember that. That's very, very important, okay? Your subconscious mind houses your emotion and your creativity. Now, as human beings, we switch back and forth between the two all the time. So let me give you an example of how we do this, a couple of examples. The first one is when we're reading a good book. I want you to think about the last time you really got lost in your favorite story. Think about whatever that was. You were sitting in your favorite place that you always curl up to read, and you were completely lost in the narrative of the story. So you're seeing it in your mind's eye, you're experiencing it on every level, you're just lost in it, right? Well, what that means is that you are using your subconscious mind to experience the story. Now, again, I want you to think about this experience. Let's say you're curled up in your favorite easy chair in the living room and you're reading, okay? You're very lost in the story, but that doesn't mean that you don't know what's going on around you. Like, you don't completely lose track of where you are or anything. You know it's there, but it's kind of on a back burner. And so you're not, it's just not front and center, right? You're not focusing on it. You are lost in the story. But then say somebody in the next room, say in the kitchen, drops something and it's really loud. Well, that immediately pulls you out of the story and you jump up to go make sure everything's okay in the kitchen, right? So you just switched between your subconscious and your conscious mind, okay? As human beings, we're built to do that. It's very easy and you do it all the time. Another good example would be, have you ever had the experience where you're driving home from along a route that you drive all the time? So home from work, home from the grocery store, something that you've driven that a million times. And when you get home, you realize you don't actually remember driving home. And you start to go, did I run any red lights? And you really can't remember. Well, you didn't. I promise you didn't, because you were on autopilot, right? Your conscious mind was taking care of those things and it was paying attention to the red lights and the green lights, but you were lost in your thoughts. So that's why you weren't focusing on that. That's another example of getting lost in your subconscious mind. Now, I don't actually believe that you can do anything creative without using your subconscious mind. So I promise you, you've been using it to write what you have already been writing, okay? The problem is you haven't been harnessing it intentionally. And another myth that I want to dispel right now is the myth of the muse, the creative muse. I don't hear this as much as I used to in the past. I think with the rise of the digital age, it's less common than it used to be, but there's always been this belief that the muse comes to a select few and you have to wait on it. You have to wait for that creativity. You have to wait for that inspiration. Guys, that's baloney. Nothing could be further from the truth. You can intentionally call the muse whenever you want. You just have to know how. And by call the muse, I just mean tap into that subconscious creativity. And like I said, you are doing it somewhat already if you're already doing anything creative. And because you're here, I know that you are. But you're not doing it intentionally. And it makes all the difference. It's so much more powerful to do it intentionally, okay? If you can intentionally harness your subconscious creativity, you will never deal with writer's block again. I know that's a big claim, but it's true. You will never deal with indecision again. You will never not be able to finish a book again or feel dissatisfied with the ending, okay? You're not going to end up with a file full of unfinished manuscripts. And that is because you will know exactly how to tap into that creativity anytime you have a question or get stuck. I'm not saying that you're not going to have story questions. Of course you will, but when you know how to do this, you don't have to be actually blocked by them, okay? I am going to show you how to do this in just a little while, but I want to get through the list first, so stay tuned for that. The second mistake is not recognizing why people buy books. So I want to ask you this question, and I want you to really think about it. Why do readers read fiction? Most of you would probably say something like escapism or entertainment, something along those lines. But I want you to go more high level, like kind of back it off a little bit and high level. Why do they read books to escape or get entertainment? There are other activities that would accomplish the same thing. So why, or, you can even ask, why do they want to escape or be entertained? Why is that the lure, right? Why fiction books? So here's the answer. And this is another one that I want you to really, really internalize. They want to feel a deep emotion in a safe space. That's why people read fiction, okay? And doing that, feeling the emotion in the safe space, is what entertains them and helps them escape. Now, secondarily, they're also looking to feel deep emotions and then release them. Okay, what we call catharsis Human beings are built to feel deep emotions and then release them. And it's really important that you understand that this is why readers buy books, because it will change the way that you look at fiction. We all yearn for this, okay? Fiction has the unique ability to help us do this. So how will this help with your fiction writing? Well, there are 3 levels or types of emotions that we need to understand and harness in our novels to create epic characters and stories. If you aren't harnessing all 3 of these types of emotions, then you are leaving a lot of emotion on the table, and that's a problem, okay? I promise you that is affecting your sales. Look, guys, effective marketing and book sales start at the story level, always. You can market the crap out of a story, but if it's not there at the story level, it's not going to help. So sure, it's true that if you aren't marketing because you have absolutely no idea how to market and are therefore not getting any visibility, that's a problem. You know, we do need to learn how to become visible, but I'm really talking about authors who are doing the marketing, right? They've done everything right. They have a high quality book. They're running ads. They have all of the metadata elements, meaning their covers, their blog, or their blurbs. I almost said blog. All of that, and they still aren't seeing the sales they want, right? Unfortunately, we all know someone like that. Well, when that happens, it's either a story problem or it's a writing problem. And this is something most authors don't want to hear, okay? If we want to be successful authors, we need to both hear and internalize the harsh truths so we can fix them. And sometimes those harsh truths is that it is a problem with your story. And if an author isn't getting good sales, odds are pretty good they aren't harnessing one of these 3 levels of emotions that I'm talking about. Okay, so I'm sure by now you're wondering, what are these types of emotions? Well, the first one is the surface emotions. These are emotions that are full of drama. So think soap operas. They're surface level emotions, and I'm not bashing them. I don't call them superficial in a negative way. That's simply where they are. You know, they're just the first level. But this is what will hook your reader. Okay, we use them in marketing to hook the reader. But they're also high adrenaline emotions. So we also use them in every scene to keep the reader glued to that scene and turning pages. Okay, these are actually what I call secret reader triggers, or SRTs. And if you learn to use them, you'll never lose the reader's attention again. Okay, so that's the first level. The second level are the emotions of the journey. This is something that I like to call transformational human psychology. But if you've listened to my podcast, you've probably also heard me call it the human template for storytelling. Now, I know that's a lot of really big words, but let me explain. In our instant gratification society, we all know we have that. We don't have as many chances to feel deep emotions on a regular basis as we otherwise would if we didn't have the technology we have. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not dogging on technology. I love technology, but we have to look at the downside too. And that is that because it's so easy for us to do things and to get things, we don't feel the emotions we otherwise would. Okay, so here's what I mean. A difficult, struggling journey creates experiential appreciation for that journey and therefore creates deep emotions. So just going through the journey on its own, it doesn't even matter what you're feeling throughout that journey, just being on the journey creates deep emotions. So if we don't have those journeys because everything is so easy for us, you know, in our, again, instant gratification society, then we're not feeling those deep emotions as much as we otherwise would. So in terms of the story, you can think of these as the day-to-day emotions that the character feels as they move throughout the journey of the story. So my point here is that you need to harness that journey for the character and get those emotions really, really hashed out for the reader, and that will create greater emotion in the story. Now, the third level is the catharsis. Now, this is a word we throw around a lot, and I'm wondering if people even really know what it is other than just emotions, you know, just create an emotion. The catharsis is the deepest level of emotion, okay? It's the most spiritual level of emotion, and it has to do with self-actualization. So this is how the character changes internally. This is experienced fully inside the character's soul. So there's not an outward component to this unless they're actually talking about it and communicating it with someone. But, you know, it's something that when a person changes on this level, we don't see it outwardly. It's something that happens in their heart and in their soul, okay? So it's not something that other characters or the readers can experience with the 5 senses, but it is communicated to the audience through the character's emotions and inner dialogue. And as I said, sometimes verbal dialogue. But here's the real kicker. It has to be driven by the plot events. Okay, so you have the internal, and that's super important, but the external, the plot, is driving the internal. So that's super important. They're all very, very heavily entangled. In short, here's like the shortest way to sum this up. The surface emotions get the reader hooked and keep them hooked in every scene. The emotions of the journey that the character goes through is what creates a page-turning story and creates experiential appreciation in the reader for the journey the character has been on. And the catharsis is the ultimate release of emotions for the reader after the buildup, okay? It is the catharsis specifically, once you hit that point and give the reader catharsis, that will create mega fans out of your readers. This is what will make them lifelong fans. It will make them read everything you write, including hopping to different genres. Now, just a quick note on this. We know that there's a lot of writers out there today who write many genres, and nothing wrong with that. I just published a book in my 4th genre, so I'm very guilty of this, right? Most people will tell you that readers won't follow you genre to genre. I mean, a small percentage of them will, and I don't think anyone has ever measured that. So this is one of those, 90% of statistics are made up on the spot sort of things. But most people would tell you it's a very small number, like 10% will follow you from genre to genre. What I can tell you is that what I have found is that my numbers for that are significantly higher. I don't have a percentage on that for you either, but it's more like 30 to 40% for me, maybe even higher. Why is that? Because when you know how to tell a story that makes someone feel something, even though, yes, everybody has their favorite genres, and of course they're going to be loyal to that genre, what they're really there for is to feel an emotion. So it's very common on my books to have my really, really loyal readers leave reviews that say things like, I don't usually read this genre, but I decided to try it. And it's because they know me. They know the author. They know that I am going to make them feel something, and I know how to tell a good story. And if you can do that, that makes your readers much more loyal. They'll buy everything you've ever written. This is why people like really mainstream authors like, J.K. Rowling and Stephen King. When people find out they're writing under pen names, they'll go buy that book because they know this author will give them a good story experience. And in that case, it's actually less about the genre and more about the emotion. So just something to keep in mind. My point here is that the reason readers read fiction, going back to that question, is to feel deep cathartic emotion. And even bringing them to the point of catharsis is a journey. You can't start the story and then just skip to the catharsis, okay? It doesn't work that way. The 3 levels have to work in tandem. And if you hit them all, you almost can't miss with the ending, okay? But you have to do it correctly. If you understand that readers buy books to feel emotion, and then that is your chief aim in writing your story, both your storytelling and your story selling will become a whole lot easier. Okay, so mistakes 3, 4, and 5 are basically going to stem from what I just said about those 3 levels of emotion. So mistake number 3 is not using the journey to create emotion. The human template for storytelling, as I like to say. So I already talked about this a little bit, but let me just put in another word about it. Some people hate templates. There are lots of authors who just absolutely abhor them, right? They say it stifles their creativity, or that if you stuff your story into a template, you're going to end up writing to a cliche. I actually agree with that last one. Okay, you don't want to stuff your story into a template. It's just not the best way to go about things. So I love the hero's journey, and I also love the Virgin's Promise and story engineering. And I've read most of the craft books out there. Okay, I'm someone who's a major student of storycraft. Okay, the only problem with templates like these, they're very valuable in what they are and what they bring to us in terms of understanding story and story structure. But the only issue with them is that they are always focused on the plot. They're always focused on external events. Therefore, trying to force the story you have into any set of templates is just not the way to go about things, okay? Doing that is working from the outside in. You're taking your story and then shoving it into this template. We don't want to do that. We want to work from the inside out. So working from the outside in, it's using your logical brain, your conscious rather than your subconscious brain. That's not good. It's an external approach, and you're not tapping into your subconscious creativity if you do it that way. So that's why it can be hard. It feels like we're forcing it, and then you end up getting blocked or getting stuck or just hating the story that you've come up with, right? Because you're trying so hard to make the story fit the template, you end up using the first thing that works logically that you can come up with, and that becomes a cliche. My point is, there's a correct way to use templates and an incorrect way, and most authors don't use them correctly. And I will say that I am guilty of this myself. When I started with templates 15 years ago, I was not using them correctly. Most people aren't because they aren't taught correctly in our space. So we want to use them as guideposts, not as absolutes. Okay, we want to tap into our unique creativity to find something that will serve our story that comes uniquely from us as authors and as human beings with unique experiences and perspectives. And we want to learn to put our own unique spin on tropes and cliches, because that is how we shift them out of the land of cliches. The second you put your own spin on something, a cliche is not a cliche anymore. Okay, so it's real simple to get away from that cliche. You just have to turn it on its head or put your own spin on it, and then bye-bye cliche. One more note on creativity. This is something that I really, really want you guys to understand. So please pay attention to this. Putting constraints on creativity actually strengthens it. Those who say using constraints stifles their creativity don't understand the true nature of creativity. I'm going to tell you a quick story about the worst crafted story I have ever read. This was back at the very beginning when I was first getting started. I had not written my first book yet, and I met a woman. We were going to the same like writers group, and these were like in-person writers groups long before COVID. And we weren't really good friends or anything, but I'd seen her at writers group a few times, and I decided that I wanted to read her book just to, not only to read her book, but to support her. And, she had been publishing in the heyday when Amazon was new and you could pop a book up there with very little editing and a really terrible cover and still make good sales. So I bought her book. I think it was 99 cents or something. And I read it. And she was a wonderful human being, but this was the most terribly crafted story I have ever read. Like, I've never read a worse one even since then. This was like 15 years ago. It just was all over the place. I mean, it was a fantasy, but it was like, there was a witch, and then there was a warlock, and then there was a dragon, and then there was a unicorn, and then there was an egg, and then there was a wand, and then the characters were just going from thing to thing to thing, and there was no cohesion to the story. There didn't seem to be an end goal. I mean, it was so hard for me to get through this book, and I think I did finish it. I forced myself to finish it because it was her book, but that's what happens when you don't have constraints, okay? It's just chaos. Absolute chaos. So let's look at genre. Genre is the most obvious constraint to our stories, okay? Putting this constraint on, along with things like tropes, actually makes you more creative. And why is that? Because you know where the boundaries are, and you're not trying to figure them out as you go. It unlocks your creativity within those boundaries, and you'll be a much more masterful storyteller if you honor those story boundaries than you would by avoiding them, okay? So just please try to keep that in mind. All right, mistake number 4, not using the inner arc to create that catharsis that I was going on about. I talked about this a little bit too, but if you've listened to my podcast at all, you've probably heard me harp on this before because it's something I've been harping on for a long time. Most authors know what it means to create a dynamic character. The character just needs to change in some way, shape, or form throughout the story, right? And even non-linear arcs, which is kind of, you get like action books, action hero kind of books that do non-linear arcs. Even then, when the character doesn't change much internally, there's still a way to do this. Okay, it just looks a little bit different. And this is just a note, if you want to know more about linear versus non-linear arcs, episode 169 of the Fiction Author Business School podcast. That's my podcast. You'd think I would know the title. I talk about this more there. So if you want to know more about that, I'm not going to go into it in this workshop, but that's where you can find more information. So here's my gripe, though, about this, because most people, again, know how to write a dynamic character. They know the character is supposed to change, but most authors only think about it as an afterthought or just a little tiny bit of planning in the beginning. Most of the time they plan the entire plot and then go, oh yeah, my character will change like this. That'll do it. That'll be good. And it's just, guys, it's not enough. Okay. It shouldn't be an afterthought like that. Don't get me wrong. I do understand why everybody does this. And like I said, I was a newbie writer one time. I used to do it this way too. We experience story through the plot. So of course, when we're coming up with our stories, the first thing we think of is the plot. That is only natural. As readers, we don't know anything other than plot, really. The rest of the internal stuff sort of filters through. So that's how we're planning our stories. But here's a secret that most authors today don't understand about storycraft. The internal arc of the character is the foundation of the story. It's very subtle. It's often something that isn't seen in a really obvious way outwardly or observed with the 5 senses, but it still ties the story together and makes everything cohesive, and wait for it, it makes everything emotional. It's so important to understand this, okay? You really, really need to put a lot of thought and planning into what the internal arc is, because if you don't have that, if you're not selling well, if again, one of those authors I talked about at the beginning where you do have the high quality book, you are doing all the marketing things, and you're still not seeing the sales you want, it's because you don't have enough emotion going on. And chances are you are not paying close enough attention to the internal arc. And this is something that so many authors shortchange. And they go, no, I've got the writing down. I don't need that. I just need marketing. I don't know about that. Maybe that's true of some people, but most people, 99% of authors who are writing books and uploading them to Amazon these days, are not doing this well enough to make a real emotional impact on the readers. Okay. So do you want to know what your story's overarching theme is? You need to plan the internal arc. Without that, you're not going to know what the theme is. Do you want to write characters that jump off the page, as we're going to learn in this workshop? You need to plan the internal arc. Okay. They're not going to jump off the page unless you have the internal arc nailed. Do you want to create that cathartic emotion in your story? The catharsis is the internal arc, people. Okay. This is, I cannot stress enough how important this is and how often it gets shortchanged by most authors. Okay. So not planning a full internal arc for your character or just planning it as an afterthought is making the conception, writing, and marketing too of your fiction much harder than if you simply take the time to do this first. Okay. This is also why I'm doing a character workshop. More than any other question, I get asked how to write fantastic, memorable, and distinctive characters. I know that when you plan your characters, you see them distinctively in your head. You see them, you hear them, you smell them sometimes, right? But communicating that on the page to the reader is very different. It's a whole other skill than just thinking them up in your mind. And we need to learn and master how to do this, okay? When people ask me this or say their characters are just falling flat, or I feel like they're not jumping off the page enough, or, you know, people don't like my characters that much, I just know that they're not doing this. I know what the problem is, okay? They aren't figuring out the internal stuff and harnessing the 3 levels of emotion, but I can teach you how to do that. All right. The next mistake is not using surface emotions, which are SRTs, secret reader triggers, to market. And this is what I call emotional marketing. So this is kind of the big kahuna. Don't get me wrong. I think planning your internal arc is actually more important than this, but what does everybody always want to know? I already told you. I get asked this all the time. How do I market? How do I get more readers to buy my book? What do I say? Give me a plug and chug formula. I got my storycraft down, but I need the marketing. How do I sell? How do I sell without feeling sleazy, right? Okay, once again, I'm going to repeat it again. Most people who think they have their storycraft down actually don't. And I'm going to encourage you to never say or think I've got my writing down, even if you do. Even if you're selling as many books as J.K. Rowling, and obviously she has her storycraft down, it's still, there's always something more you can learn. And so don't ever close the door on that, because the second you say, I don't need any more storycraft, that's the instant that you do. I promise. Okay. So once again, if you aren't internally harnessing each of the 3 levels of emotion, you don't have your storycraft down. If you aren't intentionally planning a full internal arc for your character, you don't have your storycraft down. If you aren't using secret reader triggers in every scene you write, you don't have your storycraft down. And that, not necessarily your marketing, is why you're only seeing mediocre sales. Okay, it's really more often the storycraft than it is the marketing. However, it is also true that in order for readers to buy your book, you do need visibility. So marketing, of course, it is a thing. It is something we need to learn. But understand, visibility is not actually what I teach. Okay, most of you already know how to get visible. If you know how to post on social media, email your list, or run CPC ads, you know how to be visible. Okay, I can teach you the basics of those things, but trust me, there are dozens of other people that will teach them better than I can. These things are what I call strategies. Okay, they're strategies to get visible, to get your book in front of potential readers. They're what you actually do in order to get your book in front of potential readers. You know, email, create a post, create an ad, that sort of thing. The problem with strategies is that there are thousands of authors using those same strategies today. Some of them are doing really well and making lots of money, lots of sales, lots of royalties, but other people are doing the exact same thing and they're not making hardly anything. So what does that tell you? What it should tell you is that the strategy is not the end-all, be-all way to sell books. Okay, there's some other factor in there that we're missing that is differentiating between those who are bestsellers and those who are still struggling. What I teach in terms of marketing is messaging. What is messaging? Messaging is what you say in your copy in order to convert a potential reader into a buyer. That is what messaging is. It's the psychology of what you're actually writing in your ad, in your email, or in your post. And yes, just like everything else I've talked about it, the messaging that makes the difference is all about emotion. You need to use those secret reader triggers, which are, they're basically high adrenaline words and phrases that are very, very emotional and stem from the superficial emotions. You're going to use those surface level emotions to market to your audience. Using those emotions hooks them and makes them like have to know what happens in your book, right? So it can be very, very effective. I guarantee the difference between an author with an awesome, high quality book who is running ads and seeing sales and an author with an awesome, high quality book who is running ads and not seeing sales is the emotion they're putting into their copy. And that's why I call it emotional marketing. And if you aren't doing this, if you don't know how to create the emotion in the marketing to hook your reader, you are always going to be pushing a boulder up a slippery hill when it comes to your marketing. Okay, that's hard. I've been there. I know what it's like. It sucks. It's so frustrating, but this is what people do. All right. So those are the 5 mistakes that you are probably making, that most people are, when it comes to your book. Let's recap them really fast. Not tapping into your conscious or your subconscious creativity. And how do you fix that? Learn to tap into your subconscious creativity, right? We're going to talk about that more in just a minute. Not recognizing why people buy books. And that is in order to feel an emotion in a safe space. But you know that now. You know, because of what I've talked about, that is the reason people buy books. Not using the journey to create emotion. So you need to learn to harness the journey and use it to create more emotion in the reader, that second level of emotion. And number 4 is not using the inner arc to create catharsis. So now you know that you need to really dive deep into the internal arc. And we're going to do this over the next week for your characters. I'm going to show you how to create that internal arc for your character. If you do that, that is really how you create the catharsis at the end of the story for your reader. And that is how you will create mega fans. And finally, the 5th mistake is not using the surface emotions or the secret reader triggers in order to create emotional marketing. We're going to talk about this a little bit more on Friday. So the way to fix that would be to learn to market with emotion, right? So yeah, we just covered a whole lot of stuff, and we're going to get into some character stuff. I'm not going to actually go too much longer. We're going to try to keep this under an hour, but we are going to get into some really basic character stuff today. Before I do that, are there any questions? I'm going to look here at your comments, but if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in. Hi from Kentucky. Ooh, Sydney, Australia. Hi, Catherine. Boston. Hi, Karen. Hi, Jennifer. I might go to Arizona in December. California. Ooh, Puerto Rico. Hi, Marie. This is good info. I'm glad you're liking it, Vincent. Jennifer says she's been using a template incorrectly by overdoing it. Sorry, I was mixing those up. And you got rid of it. Okay, yeah. If you're trying too hard to force your story into a template, yeah, sometimes it is better just to pull it away. Character is plot and plot is character. That's interesting. Yeah, I don't know if that's F. Scott Fitzgerald, but maybe. I recently read, says Linda, a weak plot can be propped up by strong characters, but a strong plot with weak characters will fail. Yeah, I think that's probably true. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't like coming up with a reason why you could have a weak plot. That's my only concern about that. But it is true that your characters must be strong. And if they are weak, your whole story is going to flop. Like, you're not going to be able to fix it otherwise. So yeah. Elaine, this is fabulous. I'm glad you're liking it, Elaine. Okay. So I'm not seeing any other questions. Thank you so much for your comments and your interactions. I really, really appreciate it. So let's go on. Again, if you have more questions, go ahead and put them in and I'll look at them again before we end. So today we're not going to really get into how to create your characters in a way that will make audiences love and root for them. That's the backstory. That will be tomorrow. We are going to be figuring out the character's wound, their backstory, and their limiting beliefs. But for today, another thing I teach that I think gets really shortchanged in our space is what I call desires of the creator. I talk a lot about writing your soul story. And you'll hear me say, especially on the podcast, you have a story in you that only you can tell. Now, what does that mean? What is a soul story? I kind of touched on it earlier when I talked about how you, not just as an author, but as a human being, you have your own set of experiences, your own set of memories, your beliefs, about everything. You have your own limiting beliefs. You have your own transcendent beliefs. I mean, all of that. So the point is, if I created a really, really detailed story outline, like plots and internal, and I gave you character names and places and exactly what's supposed to happen in the story, so you were kind of like ghostwriting. I gave you this already created template for a story, and I gave it to every single one of you who was in here and said, go write this. I would get back completely different stories from everyone. It would just be a matter of the character names and places happen to be exactly the same. Okay, why is that? Because we all write differently. And when I say we shortchange this, everyone goes, oh, well, everybody just has a different voice. Everyone just writes in a different style. And of course that's true, but it's so much more than that. Okay. Your soul is full of your own experiences and everything you've been through since the moment you were born. Okay. Your childhood experiences, the lens through which you see the world. I mean, it's so complex. We couldn't begin to define it. Okay. And all of that is funneling into your writing. So the way that I personally define a soul story is, number one, it has to be something that you, the author, are passionate about. And that's really, really important because your passion, you don't realize this, but energetically, your passion will bleed through the words on the page. If you are not passionate about your story, your reader's going to hate it. It does not matter how well written the story is. Okay. You have to be passionate about that story. The second thing to define a soul story is that it has to be something that is coming uniquely from you. So basically everything I just said, your own experiences, your own life, your own beliefs. And we tap into that by using our subconscious creativity, which I'm going to show you how to do here in just a minute. And the third thing that makes it qualify as a soul story is that it needs to be highly marketable using those emotions. And that's just kind of a way of saying it needs to be well written. It needs to be emotional. If you have all three of those things, if you write a soul story, it's really hard for it to actually flop. Okay. That kind of story will speak to readers and it will sell if it's speaking to readers. Right. So as I said, let's see, I already kind of went over that. If I give you the same outline, I get vastly different stories. And maybe you know everything I just said, like you kind of like, well, yeah, you know, of course you didn't not know that. But the thing is, you're not thinking consciously about it. Okay. So all of these things, if you're not thinking consciously and it's not front and center when you're writing, then it's buried in your subconscious mind. And I want you to bring it to the conscious mind and intentionally harness it. So I talked in the beginning about tapping into your subconscious creativity. One really easy and incredibly useful and creative way to do this is by journaling, or what we sometimes call free writing. Now, do not discount this. I don't know if you guys have ever been in programs, coaching programs, the kind of things where people are trying to break bad habits, or they usually deal with journaling. And the reason is because when you start journaling, you actually do the same thing you do when you're reading. You turn off your subconscious mind and then the ideas just start flowing and you end up coming up with things that you would never have come up with otherwise. And it's not necessarily anything you didn't know, but again, you're just bringing it to the forefront. Okay. I was taught how to do this in a very free writing sort of way to create premises. Like if you are really needing something to write about and you need to create a premise for your story. And literally the instructor that told us to do this, he was like, literally everyone's going to start with the pattern on the carpet under our feet. And it was like this kind of Native American looking rug. And he's like, just let your mind wander from there, go from the pattern to what could that mean? Okay, maybe this, maybe that. And you guys, when you start doing that, you almost can't stop the ideas from flowing. They just start to gush, right? You need to approach this with curiosity. Okay. Maybe this could happen, or what if that happened? And there are no right or wrong answers. You just let the ideas flow and flow and flow and flow and flow. It becomes very stream of consciousness. Now, the only caveat here is that we aren't actually going to be doing completely free writing. These are going to be guided journals. If you take nothing else away from today, please hear this. Guided journaling is by far the best, easiest, simplest, and most effective way to work through story problems. Why? Well, because the subconscious mind can and will come up with solutions for you. And this is true. I mean, forget writing for a minute, forget fiction writing. This is true in life, in everyday life. This is why so many people today are jumping on the meditation bandwagon. It's becoming very mainstream. This ability of the subconscious to solve problems for you, to come up with answers, it hasn't been widely known or understood in the modern world, but people are beginning to understand it en masse. And they know how powerful this ability of the subconscious is and can be, and how magical it can be. Because if you just ask your subconscious mind a question and go, okay, what should I do? And then just sort of relax, the answer will come. So more and more people are doing this. And guys, we need to be harnessing this in our writing. This is how I do all of my story creation. Okay. So basically this is how it works. You're going to pose a question to yourself about your story. You're going to pose it to your subconscious mind. And remember, your subconscious mind houses your creativity and your emotion. That's why story answers can come out of there. Then you're going to turn off your subconscious mind and just start journaling. When you journal, this is what happens. You're turning off the subconscious mind, letting the ideas flow. And this is why it's so effective when people are trying to change things about themselves, like habits or negative behaviors, or trying to instill new positive, healthy habits. So this is what you're going to do today. I want you, as your homework, to journal on the following questions. Number one, remember I talked about desires of the creator. What you consciously want for your story is really important. And even though, like, I know you know that, we tend to say, what are the characters doing? And what is happening in the plot? And, maybe what's my theme going to be? But stop for a minute and think about what you want and what you know about the story, why you created the story. And if you just focus on those things, on the conception, what you conceived about your story, why you conceived it, what created that thought for you, if you remember what it is, you may not, that can open a lot of clarity for your story and for your characters. Okay. So I want you to think about, how did you first conceive this story? When did you first think of it? What did you come up with? Now, I do know that some of you, the stories, you won't remember exactly when you conceived it, or you don't remember when you came up with it because you've been thinking about it for 7 years or something like that. That's fine. Write down whatever comes to mind. So you might actually be journaling and say, I came up with this like 5 to 7 years ago. All I remember is I had this idea for the scene. Write down what the scene was. Write down what you were thinking about. What experiences brought it to mind? What do you know of the story so far? So even if you only have a few pieces, a character, a scene, maybe you know the ending, but that's it, write that down. Write down what you have so far. I want you to think about what you're trying to say with what you know. So if you know what the ending is, ask yourself, okay, well, if this is what's happening at the ending, what am I trying to say about the character? What am I trying to say about the story? What message am I trying to send through this story? And why do you, the author, want to tell this story? Okay, so let me give you an example. Let's say you're Tolkien and you're writing Lord of the Rings, right? And you only have a few of the scenes, but you know that at the end, I'm thinking of the Fellowship film version, Frodo is going to need to decide whether he's going to go to Mordor or not, even if he has to go by himself. And you go, okay, well, this is the ending. I know he's going to choose to go, but he's got to overcome this. He's really afraid. He thinks he's too small. What am I trying to say with that? I'm trying to say that maybe his size doesn't matter. And maybe even though he's small, he can still change things. And so then you can come up with kind of the message. Even the smallest person can change the course of the future. And then you say, why do I want to tell that? I want to tell that because I've been told I'm too small to do things. I've been like, people have been prejudiced against me because of my size. You know what I mean? Just start getting these ideas down. They are going to inform your story so much, you're going to be shocked you didn't think of that before. Okay. Now that's all of those are more story specific, but then we're going to go into characters. What do you know of your character so far? You are welcome to just focus on your protagonist if you want, but if you want to do this for multiple characters because you know there will be multiple characters in the story, go ahead and do that. Whatever feels good to you. You can journal as much or as little as you want. I would like you, if you can, to journal to exhaustion. And by that, I don't mean journal until you fall over in your chair because you're exhausted. That's not what I mean. I just mean journal exhaustively on the subject, right? Until you can't think of anything else. So returning to your character, what do you know of your character so far? And then try to make connections between your character and what you have put in your other journal entries, like what you know of your story so far, right? So if you're journaling about the end of The Lord of the Rings and then you come up with a few things about Frodo, maybe you didn't even realize before how small he was going to be. And you're going, oh, maybe he's going to be not just a small human, maybe he's going to be a hobbit. You know what I mean? Try to make some connections there. This is going to take a little bit of time. Like I said, do as much journaling as you want. Once you start doing this, I've literally timed people with this before, you guys. I've taught live workshops where I said, okay, we're going to journal on this question, 5 minutes. And when the timer goes off after 5 minutes, everybody goes, no! And it's because they start going and they have so many more ideas and they don't want to stop because it's flowing. So allow yourself that. This is pure creativity. Do it, have fun with it, love it, okay? This is the best thing, and it will help you so much in your character creation. Okay, so I kind of went through some of this. If you don't know hardly anything about your characters because you're someone who conceives the plot first and you know more about the plot or have a particular scene or event you're writing toward that sparked the idea, just go ahead and think about that scene or that plot. Envision it in your mind. Ask yourself, what kind of character would it make sense to put into this situation? Or what type of character do I envision in this scene? Sometimes we think about our characters and we're not actually visualizing them. We just kind of have a sense of them. So try to visualize them. What do they look like? What are you thinking of in your brain? What would make sense or what comes to mind? Okay, because your intentional contribution to the story, what you want it to be, is more important than you realize. So for today, excuse me. So for today, I just want you to recognize and bring to the forefront what you already know about your character and your story. I get that there are still a lot of holes in your character and your story, and that is perfectly okay. We're at the beginning of this. We'll be hoping to fill in some of those holes as we go through the workshop, and you'll be tapping into your subconscious mind to find answers to any of the questions or plot holes or whatever the case may be that you have. But for now, you probably don't know, you probably don't know, or you probably don't realize what you already know about your characters. So your job tonight is to figure that out. Write it out, bring what you already know about your characters to the forefront so that it's no longer nebulous and in the back of your mind. We want it front of mind before we move forward tomorrow and really start crafting your characters with detail and nuance. Okay? So your homework tonight, do the journal prompts. I will put up this video. There will be replays. You know, I didn't think to actually write the journal prompts down for you, but I will create a post where I'll write them down and I'll put it under files so that you can grab it. I want you to put at least the answer to at least one of the journal prompts in the Facebook group. I will create a post right after we're done here that says homework 1. You don't have to put all of the answers to all of the prompts in the Facebook group if you don't want. You can if you want to, totally up to you, but it won't work for or against you toward winning the prize. You just got to do one. That's your homework. I want to see at least one so I know you've done it. As a bonus, and this will help you, will lead you toward the prize. This will be an extra point. Make a second post and tell me what your biggest breakthrough of today was. So was it a concept I talked about that really resonated? Was it a light bulb moment? Was it something you figured out about your characters that you didn't know before you did the journaling? Just create your own. I'm not going to do like a group one. Just create your own biggest breakthrough post in the group. And remember, whoever has the most interaction, so both the homework posts and then comment on other people's posts, will be in the running for tomorrow's prize. Okay. Finally, last thing, I have a meditation for you. It's called the Author Identity Meditation. I'm going to put it, it actually should be there already. I'll check in a minute and make sure that it uploaded right. But it'll be in the files section of the Facebook group. If you're new to meditation, all you have to do is pop in your headphones and listen to it. You know, listen to the sound of my voice and envision in your mind what I'm talking about. And this is just to help you really embrace the identity of a fiction author. It's a really fun meditation. And in my membership, I do new meditations every month, but I'm gifting this particular one to you as part of this workshop. Okay. So again, do the journal prompts, post on the Facebook group, listen to the meditation. And I will be back tomorrow, same time at 6 p.m. and we'll start crafting the characters that jump off the page and into the hearts of our readers. Okay. I think that is the end of my slideshow. So give me 1 second. Here we go. What other questions do you have before we sign off? Yes, you can make these posts in the morning, Elaine. Totally fine. So I'm going to be announcing the winner of the prize tomorrow at 6. So really you have until probably 5:30, like half hour before we go live in order to do it. So yeah, you've got plenty of time. I'll try to give you as much time as possible, but like 24 hours. All right. Anything else? All right. Well, that is it for today. Have tons of fun doing your journaling and figuring out what you know so far about your characters. And tomorrow we are going to really sink our teeth into character creation. So I hope you will all be back and join me for that. But until then, happy writing, happy creating, have a blast, and I will see you tomorrow night. Thank you so much for being here with me. I'm so pumped that you're here. All right. Bye, guys. Have a wonderful, wonderful night.